Father, how are you? So good to see you. You're going to be working great. Father, that's good. So good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know this guy?
Again, I've been out here at church due to unfortunate circumstances. I came out there with concussions for the service. Enjoyed your work.
Oh, my.
It's good to see you.
I don't.
Love that smile.
No problem. Good to see you again. Second time's a charm.
Jude, J-U-D. Thank you. He's from Houston. But is he? Thank you. Hey, Pledge of Allegiance, you got any?
Yes. I'm going to do some audience.
Thanks, Michael. Village of Salado Special Board of Aldermen meeting, Salado Municipal Building, 301 North Stagecoach, Salado, Texas, July 3rd, 2019. It is 6:31. This is the call to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Bell.
Here.
Mayor Person Touchman.
Here.
Alderman Baker. Here. Alderman Cole.
Here.
Alderman Hagen.
Here.
Mayor Blancett.
I'm here. We have a special guest with us who's going to be saying the prayer tonight. I've been in his church, his parish, gosh, maybe 5, 6, 7 times. I love to hear you preach. You're very good, Father. So thank you for coming. And he is the Catholic priest who is here at that little old beautiful church over there on the corner. It's quite beautiful. And you're outgrowing it too. So please lead us in prayer, would you? Thanks, Father.
I would like to start first by introducing myself. My name is Reverend Father Jude UCHE, MSB. I'm a Nigerian missionary. I belong to a congregation called the Missionary Society of St. Paul of Nigeria. And I'm assigned here in the Catholic Diocese of Austin. And presently I'm working as a pastor of St. Stephen Catholic Church here in Salado. I want to thank you for giving me the privilege to share this ministry of prayer with you. I really feel honored to be with you tonight and to be standing before you. And so let us pray. Good and gracious God, we thank you for the gift of the men and women who work for this Salado village. As we begin this board meeting, we ask for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that will positively affect our village and people. Lord, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, but let your wisdom lead us to know the difference between what we can change and what we cannot change. Good and gracious God, continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We make our prayers through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen.
Father, I've been to your country 4 times.
Wow.
It's beautiful. And
What
I didn't
part
know
was
you
that?
were from there.
Is that Lagos?
So we'll have to
Abuja?
have coffee one of these days and talk about your country.
Oh, sure. I'll be glad to hear you.
Good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Well
Do
done.
you mind if I sit and listen to you a few minutes?
Oh, please. Michael? Mike?
Your Honor, I'd like to introduce a young man that has volunteered to come up and lead us in the pledges. Ian Miles, would you please approach the podium? Ian is going to be a 7th grade at Salado. He's an honor student. His main hobby is karate in his father's dojo, and I understand he's quite lethal. So thank you for coming up and leading us.
Very well. May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and allegiance to Texas.
I pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated, please. I'm very pleased to announce that the person who puts this together, who gets the person who says the prayer, and Mike, you did an excellent job with the father, I'll tell you. And the young man, say his first name? Ian. Very good. In 7th grade. That is really super good. So I'm glad I got to meet you. I think Casey Davis was in the 7th grade, and that's my grandson. So he's about as tall as you are and about as thin as you are. It's good to have you. Thank you so much for being here and for doing that. You did an excellent job. Citizens' communications, I do not have any. There are not any. Is that right, Carol? Okay. We have the consent agenda against us. A, approval of minutes of the regular Board of Aldermen meeting of June 20th, 2019. And B, approval of minutes of the special Board of Aldermen meeting of June 25th, 2019. I will entertain a motion to accept those.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in discussion, please. Well, we got to have, questions have been called. That's quick, Amber. Jeez, that's good. Okay. Question has been called. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Opposed likewise. Okay, status report. How are you doing this day, Don?
Doing well, sir. Let me run through a few items very quickly.
Sure.
First of all, the status on the wastewater project. As of tonight, approximately 35% of the properties in the service area have made payment on their wastewater impact fees and are in the process of connecting to the wastewater system. So significant activity in the last 10 days. A final wastewater connection of the Stagecoach property to the new wastewater system is complete. We've made the switch over. We've relocated the SCADA, the monitoring system for it. So it is now literally done as far as the final connection of the Stagecoach property to the treatment plant. Work is about to begin on the legal process of transferring the old Stagecoach plant site and the wet well to the Stagecoach owners. As you know, our development agreement says that will happen. We were obligated to make the final connection and then transfer the parking lot property over when we're completed. Working with the engineer to address some intermittent odor issues at the Royal Street lift station. They're not major issues at this point, but we're trying to stay ahead of the game on that situation. And we're also in the process of coordinating with the Salado ISD middle school contractor on the connection of the high school and new middle school site to the Williams Road sewer main that's expected to occur sometime in the next few days, not the next few months. They're running a little ahead of schedule on that, and so we're kind of excited to hear about that. The way that's going to work, as you know, is the high school will have a connection from their treatment plant, which will be decommissioned, and it'll run across that middle school property and tie into the main. So we'll see the high school come online first, and obviously when the school gets further down the road in construction, they too will tie into the situation. Status report on Main Street improvements. Capital excavation crews are working north on Main Street. If you've not been down there to see, having completed the installation of the storm sewer pipe in front of the Stagecoach Inn earlier this week. I took a few more days than they were expecting, but they're out and they're away from the Stagecoach property, much to the pleasure of the owners of the Stagecoach. They're now working in the area of the Baptist Church, and we want to let people know that you're probably going to see a few more lane closures than you saw here in the Stagecoach work, just because the roadway narrows in that particular area. A reminder, the police department is out in force, working enforcement in that construction zone, and you don't want to pay the price for a construction zone ticket. So please obey the speed limits and watch out for the cops. Improvement project, as you know, involves the installation of storm sewer pipe, sidewalks, decorative street lighting, parking improvements, the full length of Main Street. Again, we should be done hopefully with this project by this time next year. Status report on the Chisholm Trail code enforcement matter. This is an issue that we've been kind of keeping you updated on. This particular property is located at 2919 Chisholm Trail. It's more commonly known in town as the unfinished house. And that is exactly why we're taking action at this point. We made a concerted effort about a year ago to make contact with the property owner to try to bring them in compliance. At that time, as you know, the property owner came before this board and made a commitment to bring this home to a point of completion within 6 to 10 months. Permits were issued for them to do so, and they've hit a wall of some sort. The work has been extremely sporadic. Their permit is currently expired. The grass is overgrown. We're getting complaints about trespassers on there. This city has been dealing with this particular project for well over 5 years, more closer to 8 years. And our feeling is it's time to bring this to a head. We've given ample opportunity, ample room. As you know, there were issues with septic at first. Now, from what I understand, they're tied up on other issues and they're unable to pay attention to the project. So we visited with the prosecutor, and we're going to go ahead and proceed and take action in this situation. And when I talk about take action, the home is not substandard, so it's not a dilapidated structure. It doesn't fall into the code as far as that goes. What we have is basically a nuisance property that needs to get secured. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to court and hope to obtain compliance through court. And if we're unable to obtain compliance through court, our next step is to go ahead and try to get permission from the court to go in and secure the property ourselves and place a lien on that property to recover any costs that we incur as a result of trying to do that. Our feeling is this: it has become a neighborhood nuisance. It has been an eyesore for this community. It is quite frankly a safety issue for this community as it's wide open and people are wandering in and out of it. And the end is here as far as our tolerance level of this situation. So I want to let you know where we are, and we'll keep you updated as we progress. This is a process that will not take place overnight, just so you know. There's a significant amount of due process that has to be afforded in these type of enforcement matters. But our feeling is hopefully if we can get the individual, before court, that maybe they'll realize that we're serious in the need to at least get the place secured. That's what we told them in our last discussion, was at least secure it. Make it acceptable from the outside, secure it. If it takes you a year to finish the inside, that's fine. The problem is we're all seeing this autopsy, and it's not a pretty picture. So this kind of give you the status and where we are on that. Status report on the surplus police pickup truck. As you know, the Salado Police Department had a pickup truck with 130,000 plus miles, well over $3,000 needed to fix the engine transmission issues that existed. It was declared surplus. The village explored the possible donation for truck to the local school district for educational purposes due to the vehicle's limited potential at auction. Truck in that condition is not going to bring a lot. So the idea was, is there something else we could do with it? So we said maybe it could be used for educational purposes. We contacted the school district first here, the Salado ISD, and they expressed no interest in the truck because they at this time don't have an auto tech program. We then contacted the BELTON CTE program. That was the second contact we made, and their auto tech instructor expressed interest in using that vehicle to educate students. So we went through the process, secured the necessary administrative approvals from the district, and of course this board voted to transition that vehicle to the Belton ISD for educational purposes, and that vehicle will be transferred next week to the school district for those purposes. I think it's going to be a positive impact on this community. I want to stress very quickly something, and that is this vehicle is going from a village, a city government, to a school district, not from one individual to another individual. And I'll leave it at that. So I think it's going to be a positive project for this community, and I think some kids are going to learn from this. They're the ultimate beneficiaries and the only beneficiaries, quite frankly. Status report on the FY 2020 budget development. A call will be issued next week for public input regarding the FY 2020 Village of Salado operating budget. We're going to put something in the newspaper, put something online, encouraging people to give us a call. And this is their first shot, just to let us know what it is they think we should be spending our money on. Should we be spending money on streets? Should we be spending money on air conditioning? Should we be spending money on vehicles? Should we be spending money on, cleanups, those type of things? We want to know because we're in that process of putting this pie together. So this is an opportunity for them to weigh in. It is not their only opportunity to weigh in on the budget. And I want to stress that because, as you know, we're obligated to have public hearings, and this board will be involved in public discussion through alderman meetings and also workshops as we near the approval date for the budget. The staff will be presenting a needs budget on July 18th at the Board of Aldermen meeting. For those members who are not going to be able to be here, we'll do a special presentation for them when they come back in. Just so you know, the needs budget is not the proposed city budget. It's not the mayor's official starting point budget. It is a budget that the staff has put together to give you all, as members of the board, an idea of what the staff sees as some of the true needs that this city has. It's not a wish list budget. There's no Disney involved in this. It's reality, and it's basically an opportunity for you to see what we see as far as our needs are in the way of staffing, in the way of equipment, in the way of facilities, in the way of capital improvements, those type of things. I will tell you right now, we don't go into this presentation in 2 weeks with the idea that we're going to get any of this stuff, but we feel it's important that you all understand what those needs are that we've identified as we're in that day-to-day operation of this operation city. And so hopefully what it'll do is it'll plant a seed, and you'll be able to look around and see and learn more and educate more and ask more questions about those needs as they come up in the future. There'll be some big numbers in that budget. And again, I don't want to scare you. We're not asking for those, and we're not anticipating that. And we beg on the public not to pass rumors around that that's what we're asking for. We just think it's important to begin the education process as far as those needs. And we'll continue to update that in years to come, as you know. The certified appraisal roll from the appraisal district, the tax roll, is due on July 24th. Once we have that in hand, we'll be able to finalize the proposed budget with the mayor that he will submit to the board and to the community, actually on August the 5th. That will be filed with the city secretary's office per code. A public hearing on the proposed budget and tax rate is scheduled for Thursday, September the 5th, so mark your calendars. And of course, the adoption of the budget and the tax rate is scheduled for September the 19th. If for some reason we are not there on the 19th and ready to approve a budget and a tax rate on the 19th, we've got until the end of September to approve that document and to have that document in place. That's state law. So that's basically what we've got there as far as our staff report goes.
Questions to Don, please.
I got two, sir.
Yes, sir.
The first one, you talked about the wastewater project update. You said 35% are paid. That's paid.
Have paid and or starting to connect. So they've made partial payment
Okay.
or full payment.
Okay, great. That'll take care of that. Then also the second part about the Chisholm Trail Home Code Enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Could that also apply to other homes that have been abandoned within Salado?
Yeah, it could. The conditions in this situation are pretty extreme. But if there are other abandoned homes, please let us know about those, and we'll go do an assessment on those and make a
Okay, so
determination.
there's a set criteria that determines that.
They have to be a nuisance. They have to be a hazard. In this situation, this one has become that.
Yeah, I know the house you're talking about. Okay, so thank you very much. That's
Yes,
all I have.
Absolutely.
I have a question about that Chisholm Trail property too. I know we're talking about securing it as far as the inside, but as far as the outside goes, as far as the tall grass and all those rocks, it's real snaky and all that kind of, and so will we be able to do anything on the outside, or is this just keeping it locked up?
No, I think there would be an attempt to go ahead and clean the whole property up as far as not just the exterior elements itself and the front backyard and those type of things. We try to get it mowed. He has mowed the property. He's come in periodically and mowed the home side itself, but he acquired an adjacent tract, which is the one that's so overgrown right now. That's his septic field, and for some reason we haven't figured out why exactly he's gone in and he's kind of cut that line off, because both pieces of property are his under the tax code. So we'll work with him. We're hoping that moving forward with this situation, it'll get him in check and he'll work with us for a quick resolution.
On that same topic, so we have not done any mowing there ourselves.
No, sir, not at this point.
All right, so on Monday, somebody was there mowing.
That was the person who mowed up to that one line and it's not.
Well, they mowed the septic field. They were mowing it when I walked past it. They were out there mowing it.
It's still in mode
Okay.
as of this morning. They did mow part of the backyard in that area, but Rodney, he bought, there's a triangular piece of property
Yeah,
that
I know what you're
a lot of
talking
people didn't
about.
think
Goes
was
down to
his.
the golf cart path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's now his. He had to buy that because they started building that house. He started going through the renovation process without securing a septic permit, and found out he didn't have the land necessary for a septic.
Other questions, please?
Yeah, Don, on the Chisholm Trail House, same subject. Where are we going to be this time next year? If he doesn't do anything, if it turns out to be like the city sign out in I-35 where it just drags along, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that.
You would bring that. That's not a city sign, by the way.
That's right. But worst case scenario, if he doesn't do anything, doesn't secure it or whatever, we're going to have a lien against this property. We're going to be taking care of it, basically, correct?
Well, what you'll do is you'll go in, if worse comes to worse, you'll go in and seek permission to go in and authorize securing the home. How you secure it is what's going to drive, the appearance. It's a neighborhood property. It's a visible neighborhood property. So I doubt seriously we go in there and try to put boards up and make it look like a shack. But, and then you secure, probably the biggest issue from a security standpoint is going to be his garage. And then on a mowing standpoint, yeah. But normally in those type of situations, I've been in this business 21 years. Normally in those type of situations, it doesn't ever really get to that. When they realize that you're going into that property, going onto that property. This individual is responsible, and I really do believe he's a responsible person, but I think that it's not a priority in his world at this point, and I think it's important that we come that way. I mean, he's got a good reputation.
Okay. On the going back to the highway department work on Main Street. I'm not real happy with him continually blocking like the stagecoach area that people can't go in there and park. I thought that was going to be temporary parking, do the work, and then get out of there and move down the street. And right now, the parking in front of stagecoach has been blocked for 6 weeks, something to that effect.
No, they actually moved the barriers Monday night, and you can park in front of it now.
Okay, but the time frame is not conducive to our businesses. I was wondering if you can talk to them or go in there and make sure.
Absolutely.
You let them know that at least one of the board members is concerned about it not being very business friendly.
We had discussions with them regarding the stagecoach situation, and my comment to them was, in our business, we have to take comments and take aggression when you sometimes don't want to, don't have to. And they took some aggression and some comments during the construction process that I don't know if it had an impact as far as slowing things down in the response. I hope it didn't, but we called up and expressed our concern about that. The concept of parking a maintainer in front of the restaurant, we could have parked that maintainer up on the hill or relocated that. And I think they're aware of that at this point. Our comment was, this is not the way to start off. And I think they're aware of that.
Okay.
They moved quickly. But no, it's free and open at this point. They missed it by 2 days.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions, please? Good report, Don. Well, Pat, how are you today? Good. Good to see you.
Before I begin, I'd just like to say, congratulate Father Jude. He just celebrated his 10th year as a Catholic priest. He was ordained 10 years ago, so congratulations. All right, for June, last month we had 303 calls for service. As you'll see in the next slide, it's pretty much consistent with what we had. Citations, we had 78, and that's up from 9 from past month. And of those, 59 were verbal warnings, and we had 1 arrest last month. Reports, we did 12 reports, 2 calls for service, our 2 supplements. So as you see, it's the calls for service are staying pretty consistent, and I'll elaborate further on that. Citations, you can see the trend, and again, when you have only 2 officers and the chief, that the numbers went down in the last couple months. Those will go up. Crashes are just consistent. It just depends on what's going on the highway with weather and so forth, where most of our crashes. And our priority 1 response times, I believe that now that we have another person on board, we'll see those start to decrease a little bit. On priority 1, priority 2 went down a little bit from last month, nothing significant. and priority 3 as well. It went up a little bit. And again, those just change depending on calls when they're responding and where it's at, and so forth. Still working. We're working on the Are You OK program, waiting on that to get the online application, getting that out on our website. And we need to start working on getting the message out via social media and through other means so people are aware of it. And so those of you who don't know, it's just basically somebody signs a family member up, or they sign themselves up for our cops representatives to call them once, twice, maybe 3 times a week. Just verify. All they do is call them, ask them if they're okay. If they say yes, they are, that's the end of it. If they don't answer, it authorizes us to go out and check on them with either us or FD or both to verify their well-being. So potentially, hopefully save somebody's life if they've, injured themselves or so forth, can't get to a phone. Working on the heat program specific for Salado. Again, flyers have been completed, and we're working on getting stickers made for the vehicle so they're used in the city. Last month, Officer Dunchie did receive the Texas DPS Life-Saving Award and Director's Award in Austin for his actions back in March when he saved a lady from her burning car, jumped in a burning car and pulled her out while she was on fire. And Chris and Trooper Michael from DPS received the awards down in Austin. Just like to introduce Sergeant Andrew Pence. He's our new sergeant. Sworn in last week on the 24th, and he'll be up and running on his own next week. He just completed his field training with his officers, really just kind of get familiar with our systems. But Sergeant Pence and I work together in Killeen PD. He's a retiree from Killeen as well, and he's been teaching in the Coppers Cove Elementary School District for the last eight years. So he's done dealing with those bad kids in school and wanted to come and be a police officer again. So convinced him to come back. So I'd like to welcome Sergeant Pence. I was going to make him give a speech, but so. Does anybody have any questions for me or for Sergeant Pence?
Sergeant, come on up.
You have your speech?
Sergeant, tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Well, I'm married. I have 3 adult sons. Well, 2 are real adults. One's still living at home. He's 21. I spent some time in the Army, about 8 years. When I got out, I decided I needed to find something else to do, so I joined the Killeen Police Department. I worked there for 17 years, rose up through the ranks, worked with Pat in youth services, CID, organized crime. And it wasn't organized, like we didn't organize the crime. We attempted to combat organized crime. At the time, I got an opportunity to go to Afghanistan to work with some soldiers. There was a couple reasons I did that. One was the money, obviously, but the other was, I kind of felt like I needed to do something to help out. And they were looking for experienced investigators to teach that stuff. So I went and spent 18 months with soldiers in Afghanistan. It was a great experience. Came back, taught school for a couple years, got called and said, hey, you want to go back to Afghanistan? And I said, sure, I'll go back. So I went back for another year. Came back, taught 5 more years of school. Enjoyed teaching school, teaching the kids, but Pat called me up and said, hey, would you be interested in getting back in law enforcement? And I said, yeah, I think I would be. I'm ready for another change. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Any questions to either our chief or to our new sergeant?
I have one comment.
Sure.
I know Don's been working on a reverse 911 program. Chief, do you have any input into that, or are we getting close to getting that? July 10th, we go live.
We go live July 10th.
Well, that's good. That's a week.
Right around the corner.
I want to stress it's not a reverse 911 program. It is a community notification system, which has the same functionality of it, but we don't want to mix those 2 definitions.
Hopefully it works better than the one in Coppers Cove, because I got the message that the tornado was in town when it was blowing through my backyard. So that's about when it went off on my phone.
It will work better than that, I guarantee you.
And then the second thing, there's a lot of media interest in getting something posted either on the police website or own website about is the crossings closed and which ones are closed, so people can.
We put it out on Facebook, and Facebook page seems to get a lot of views, so it goes out immediately as soon as we have low water crossings. And again, that's dependent on what's going on, because if we have one officer on, that person's out running around putting the signs up and trying to get everything blocked off.
Sure.
But we try to get that out as soon as possible.
Twitter also in that, as far as that format goes, because that's real popular thing. And of course, the notification systems do that too.
Okay.
It'll actually send emails, voicemail, as well as.
Something I'm going to have to learn. Twitter is not something I'm familiar with, so.
Me either, so
Yeah.
he just left me there.
We'll have to hire my daughter. I have to hire my daughter or something to help us with that, so.
I got one question for you, sir. Do you by chance monitor the next door activity, the social media of Salado that's going on?
Some of it, and a lot of it I watch on our Facebook page, just what we post and what's going out there. I know that it's hard to watch all of those. And
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is, I believe it was on Sunday and Monday, the whole thing lit up with several reports of a black pickup truck, F-150 pickup, stopping in front of homes, staring at homes, and when the guy was approached, he sped off.
yeah, I would ask that the citizens call the police department
Yeah, I
when
was gonna
that's
ask you,
going on.
what's the most efficient thing they
Call
can
the
do?
police department or call 911 or call the comm center, Bell County Communications. That's the best way to get it out, because if the officer's not in the office, he's not going to get the phone call. You can call the comm center and they'll dispatch. And if, they're not tied up on a call, they'll respond.
Okay,
But
thank you.
unfortunately, we get a lot of that. People put stuff out on social media, but they don't let us know about it.
Sure.
And for us to try to monitor those along with the radio and the MDT, the mobile data terminal in the car, it's next to impossible. We
Yeah,
can't
I
do
don't know
that.
what time this was reported.
Yeah.
They just said blanket statement a
Yeah.
couple of times. from several
John,
people.
in your discussions with people, there's a reluctance a lot of times with people to call because they may not know for sure. They're concerned about how they're going to be interpreted, that they may be interfering, they may be getting in the way. The
Right.
kicker is this: if it's an emergency to you, literally, if it's an emergency to you, call 911. If you think it's urgent, it doesn't. It's your criteria that counts when it talks about calling 911. The kicker is don't sit back and don't do anything.
Well, I think a lot of people are apprehensive to call because, like you said, they don't
Yeah.
know if they're wrong
You
or
know,
right.
if
but-
they think it's suspicious, I mean, that's
That's
what we look at. I mean,
Right.
if a regular, reasonable person thinks something's suspicious, then it's
It's the
suspicious.
same thing to us.
So they shouldn't hesitate to call.
Yeah, they-
Yeah, and we've gotten those calls and we've responded, but we got to get the call, because to have us have to monitor some social media website to see what's going on for us to respond, it's next to impossible.
They shouldn't fear embarrassment.
Oh, yeah,
No.
people are. They just-
Yeah, and I think it's a small town environment. I've received calls where somebody didn't want to be a bother and there was smoke in the building and they smelled what to be fire, and I was like, I didn't want to be a bother and call 911. It's more than a bother, That's okay to bother us on stuff like that, but if they feel it's something that we need to be, it needs to be addressed. It makes them feel uncomfortable, call us. We'll respond, we'll deal with it, and it may not be anything. Somebody may be just looking at houses.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I have one thing, and it's a comment, it's not a question. I wanted to tell you, so both my kids came through the CPS system. And so they have kind of always had a little bit of a gun shyness around police officers. And I will tell you that my kids are absolutely in love with some of the officers. You've done a fantastic job with hiring, but also they have big personalities that are very outgoing and make people feel comfortable. And it's a huge thing for those kind of kids to see, to be able to go up and get the little police badge stickers and all those things. I mean, the outreach is incredible. You're really doing a great job. So I just want to let
Appreciate
you know.
Thank you. Yeah, and you'll
They
get,
weren't, you don't have a daughter that's just learning to ride a bike, do you? No, okay.
If she was, it wouldn't enter my watch. But it wouldn't surprise me.
What
yeah,
happened when you were in Vegas?
yeah, we do our best to, and I've driven over the bridge a couple times this weekend and got on my PA and told them to put more sunscreen on. The kids are looking at red, so I'm trying to, yes, I think I'm kidding.
Other questions, please, or comments? All I can say, Pat, is ditto to everything that's been said. You are very,
you.
very good, and I love to see your presentations each time they speak. And Sergeant, you talk well.
Thank you.
You really do. We're
Being
glad
in
to
front of
have
all
you.
those kids, because they'll sharpshoot you.
I know.
You can also teach us all to read.
That's right. But you have to read, so I mean,
That's right.
that's the catch.
Well, you're part of a great community, enjoy it, because we're going to enjoy
I've
it.
enjoyed the first week, 2
Weeks.
weeks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is Shane here?
No, he's not.
More than likely, he will come. Usually when he's not here, when his turn comes, it's because he's on call. So I don't know, but if he comes, he too makes great reports. Chadley, is Chadley here? Where's Chadley? There you are. How you doing, Chadley?
Doing well yourself?
I am doing well.
Good.
Good news, I have new ears, so we should have fewer communication problems. I don't know if I had any communication problems with this board, but the other one did. But anyways, I apologize. I don't have a visual aid for you this time. I will next time. Fortunately, all the stuff I have for you is qualitative in nature, so you won't be listening to a bunch of numbers and trying to grab them yourself. The first thing is that for those of you who don't know, we had a contract with the billboard for this fiscal year, 2 digital billboards. One was in north of Waco and one was south of town, south of Gerald. And we, after much deliberation, decided to move the one that was in Gerald further away. And we moved it down in Brookshire, which is heading west out of Houston. And so that was just a live discussion that we had with the board initially, and then Don and I had some discussions about it, and we decided to move it. We've got display ads running currently. I think I mentioned it last time. Basically, just run-of-the-mill internet ads running right now, talking about Salado, and I'll have numbers on that campaign at a later date, either next month or the month after. It's a month and a half long, I think, campaign. I have to look at the dates again, but I should have that information to you soon. Social media is going really well. Just to give you perspective, our Facebook last year, from this time last year, is almost doubled Facebook followers. So we're getting more engagement. And so hopefully it'll just continue to rise and get more exposure. And then I've been working alongside the Stagecoach as well as working on my own with different travel writers. And we're finally starting to see some of that come to fruition. For instance, there was a travel writer that was here in January, and an article that she was a part of just got published this month. So it takes a long time for this stuff to come to fruition. Oftentimes it'll take longer, especially if it's a larger magazine that looks further out, that requires maybe a higher quality writer, a higher profile writer, things like that. But just this summer, I mentioned San Antonio Magazine last time. We got some some morning show coverage in San Antonio last week, and then Texas Highways will be not a full feature in Texas Highways, but a part of their main feature of the magazine for the August issue. So good stuff there. That was all free. And it's about building those relationships with the writers and helping them along. So this writer in particular was brought in from the Stagecoach, and I sort of was the one that was keeping in touch with her. I spent all day with her while she was here in town, showed her around town, talked to her about Salado and that sort of thing. And then as far as events, July is nothing really special in terms of larger events. Salado Legends is coming up towards the end of the month, and then the museum has some new programming that they're working on. They're trying to do more programming in the future, and I'm trying to help work with them and sort of help promote it, and also help them manage it, if you will. And then the last thing I have is that I have begun conversations with the Chamber of Commerce here in town to sort of figure out ways in which we can work together, because given that we are separate and we work on we have two different goals. Those goals very much overlap, as we know, and it's because we are so small. And so working with them to try to figure out ways in which maybe I can work with their membership to help serve visitors better, things like that. So that more will come on that once it's actually something. Right now it's just talks. So that's all.
Questions, please, to Chadley.
I got one question, sir.
Mhm.
Every time I drive past that sign that used to be in Gerald, I'm just wondering why it's there. I'm glad you moved that.
Yeah.
So what part of, I guess coming out of Houston's Interstate 10, and then 290 is a direct shot to Salado. Where's that digital sign going to be? On Interstate 10 or is it on?
It's on I-10. It's on I-10. Yeah, so it's not directly heading towards Salado,
Yeah.
but it is good exposure. And to be completely honest, I was limited on choices of where we could move it. The billboards that we got in Jarrell and north of Waco were really cheap. And so I was restrained in terms of what they're, given their inventory, what I could choose from that. The only other options I had were out in West Texas. And I just didn't see that, or towards West Texas, I just didn't see that being very viable. So we are getting a lot of exposure in Houston. We are running ads in Houston. People are engaging with our ads in Houston. We do get a lot of visitors from Houston. For instance, one of our lodging properties has mentioned that most of their business comes from Houston. And so I do think it's good exposure. Even if they're heading out of Houston, they're going to Fredericksburg on I-10 and they see our ads, maybe that'll, you never know. With these things, it's such a, you can't really pick your audience with billboards. You sort of have to just create the best ad, pick the best location, and try to run the best campaign. You can imagine the variety of different people that travel on an interstate, from from hitchhikers to So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Chadley, please? Comments? Chadley, every Wednesday I speak to all the new people who are coming to Fort Hood. Today there were 275 soldiers, 29 spouses came with them. And one of the comments came up was about Salado. And they don't know who I am because I sure don't use that out there. But Chadley, if you could give me something that deals with higher education, colleges, universities, that's where I am. If you can give me something, I'll make sure that every week people knows about something that has to do with higher education in Salado.
Okay.
It may even be the College Hill. Just come take a look at it, or whatever it may be.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. We'll do.
Any other thoughts or questions? Thank you very much. John Howard Payne University is thinking about moving out of Brownwood. It's not growing as fast as they want it to grow. They're looking at a place somewhere either close to Salado, somewhere between Salado and New Braunfels. Just an idea.
I can tell you what we're looking at. Ruffles, we need to get them here. So.
Oh, I'd love to have Howard Payne here. That would be good. All right, thank you very much.
Hey, real quickly, one side item, Mike touched on it briefly, and I think we probably ought to give an update. There was discussion, as you know, at the last meeting about the gateway sign. That is not a city project. We have been providing updates at your request on our knowledge on that. But Mike and I, as we discussed at the last meeting, we're going to make contact with the people behind that project to visit with them about what we can do to move that forward. And I think we're making progress. We've had a couple of meetings, and we're in the middle of taking care of some things to see what we can do. And hopefully we'll be in a position to bring you a proposal in early August.
Very well.
I have a question on that. Don, is that a city project?
No, sir, that is not a city project.
Sure.
Thank you for asking that question.
You all ready, Neil?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah,
We're ready.
okay. All right. Let's go to number 4, please. Ordinance. Consider approval of the second and final reading of an ordinance of the Village of Salado, Texas, amending ordinance number 2015.02, amending the method for calculation of the fee charged in the Village of Salado for residential building permits and inspection fees, providing for severability, repealing conflicting ordinances, and providing for findings of fact, an effective date, and proper notice and meeting. Don?
Yes, sir, Mayor, members of the board, as you know, the legislature, just kind of brief people, the legislature in the just completed session adopted a bill that basically prohibits cities such as the Village of Salado from setting building permit fees based on the value of construction. Instead, we have to come up with some other methodology. And so what we come up with is setting a permit fee based on square footage, and this is for residential dwelling permits. This is for single-family home permits, new homes, additions, remodeling homes, those type of things. Does not affect commercial and doesn't affect a lot of other side pieces. You adopted the first reading of this ordinance that establishes the new assessment process. You asked us to make a modification to clarify that we're not going to charge $875 or $785 for permits for storage buildings, and we've done so. Storage building permits will continue to be assessed as they are right now, and it's value-based after they hit a certain point in size. So it's before you tonight for consideration, second and final reading. Staff recommends approval.
Questions to Don, please? If there are no questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the ordinance on second reading.
Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion, please.
Question.
Question has been called. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Opposed, likewise passes. Number 5, discussion and possible action. A, discuss and consider possible action regarding a proposed interlocal agreement between the Village of Salado and the Salado ISD relating to a school resource officer program. Don?
Yes, sir. Mayor, members of the board, we visited with you about this during the annexation process. One of the things that we've been talking to the school district about with the annexation of the property is the implementation of what's called a school resource officer program. It's where we basically will hire a police officer whose duty will be to work school campuses during the school year, about 170 days a year to be exact. It is a cost-sharing program where the school district will pick up lion's share of the cost for the officer itself. And those times when the officer is not working on campuses, they will become a Salado police officer and work on the streets of Salado with our other police officers. The breakdown, I think, should be noted, and that is the position itself would be, and we're going to talk about that as far as creating that in a minute, would be a corporal's position. When you look at the layout of the hours worked and those type of things, the salary, benefits, and overtime piece, the school district will pick up about $39,000 of that particular cost. They're also going to be paying towards vehicle use, gas. They'll pay towards radio use, and they'll also pay towards the body-worn camera. The thing that's important about this agreement is it sets out the framework for how certain elements of this officer's job need to be handled and how the cooperative relationship will exist. For example, access to video taken to the body-worn camera. If there are restraints, if the officer's in a position where they have to restrain the student, what policies and procedures have to be followed as far as that goes. It sets up a constant monitoring process to the point where on a monthly basis, the chief, the superintendent, and the SRO, the school resource officer, will meet to just talk about the status of the project, talk about issues that come up during the year, try to address those issues and head off anything. This officer will not be enforcing school rules. That officer is on campus to basically keep the peace and to respond to activities and issues that normally an officer would respond to. The officer will interface with the students and the faculty and become part of that environment. And the officer is going to have the ability to participate in the development of programs like Explore programs, where kids learn about law enforcement and you form kind of law enforcement clubs. We envision the officer spending most of their time on the high school campus, but they will be visiting all of the campuses in that process. But at least at this stage of the game, the discussions are focused around the idea of staging that officer at the high school campus with an office in that. The district will provide the officer with a cell phone. They have a FirstNet system that they've bought into, which is a walkie-talkie type system for cell phones. It's kind of like the old Nextel phones, but they bought into that, and it's robust and has the ability to stay on in times of crisis and those type of things. But that will be the communications link between the campuses, the faculty, and the officer. We are not going to give the school district a police radio. We really can't do that. It's not realistic. So they're comfortable with the layout. We're comfortable with the layout, and the agreement's before you tonight for review and consideration, and we recommend approval.
Questions to Don, please?
Don, when school is out of session, like during the summer, what will this officer be doing?
On the streets of Salado, working in neighborhoods.
And has the school approved this agreement as
We
presented?
will go to them after your action tonight.
Have they had a chance to look at it?
Absolutely. In fact, the interesting thing about it is we went in at a base officer salary in this situation. In our discussions with Dr. Novotny, we all were in agreement that maybe what we ought to do is kick the salary up a little bit, see if that will allow us to get maybe a better quality, maybe an experienced SRO as opposed to someone starting at the ground level. So hence the reason we did the corporal.
I got a question for you, sir.
Sure. Yes, sir.
I may have misunderstood. Did you say he'll have a car?
He will have a car.
Okay. Will he be armed?
He will be armed.
Okay, now also, will he interface daily with the Salado Police Department?
Yes,
And
sir.
they're gonna have open communication in the event something.
His
tragic does?
supervisor, like we talked about at the last meeting, his supervisor is actually going to be the police department supervisor. The chief will either take care of that supervision or assign that to Sergeant Pence. But they're in charge of him, not the school district. But that's why there's this cooperative communication that's going to take place throughout the year.
So he's not out there independently
No,
just?
sir.
Okay, great, thank you.
Absolutely not. And he'll have to go through special resource training as far as this type. This is similar to, it's specialty law enforcement. And there are certain strategies and those type of things that SROs go through as far as how to deal with things and deal with conflict and those things. So this individual will have to go through that type of training.
Yeah, because this is a newsmaker. If something even goes slightly wrong anywhere in any school in the U.S., it's front page news. So.
It's a very common program. It's very common in school districts around there. I know Dr. Botny's had interest in doing that. We just didn't have the ability to do it at that point. But we're at that stage in the department's development where we feel we can bring them on to do that.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments to Don, then, please?
Do you have a backup plan in case this person's sick or they don't work out or?
Yeah, we do. The thought process is we're going to look at the idea of maybe when this person goes through training, doing some cross training with another one of our officers. Obviously, in a situation as small as our department is, it's going to be hard for us to pull somebody off. But for extended periods of time, we would either use one of our officers or we've been in contact with Belton in the city of Belton to look about using their SROs who may be off duty at the time to pull them in. In those situations, the school district, in those situations where for some reason we end up leaving the campus unmanned for some emergency situation, the district has the ability to come back and reduce that amount from the total monthly bill. For example, if they're out for a day on a SWAT exercise or some other type of emergency where they couldn't be on campus and they didn't get service, they can pull that cost back.
And I didn't see, I'm probably just missing it, but I know it has the school district cost, but what is our cost?
Our cost is about 35%. The district picks up about 65%, and it's a pretty even split. And we're talking about using an existing vehicle right now, Amber, as far as going out and buying a brand new vehicle. As this program evolves, we've initiated a capital vehicle replacement program, and so we'll try to roll those costs in the agreement at some point in the future. It's an annual agreement that renews every year.
Other questions or comments, please? I'll entertain a motion, please.
Move we approve the interlocal agreement between the village and Salado ISD for the SRO officer.
Is there discussion?
Question.
Question has been called. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, likewise. This is one of the smartest things that we have done. This is absolutely good.
I think it says a lot for a city this size to step up and do something like this. Normally, smaller cities rely on the county, but the school district has been very interested in having our officers on campus.
Okay, number B. Discuss and consider possible action regarding the proposed creation of a school resource officer position in the Salado Police Department. And we've had that discussion. There's more to that.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is it's the salary, the starting salary for that individual, or the hourly would be $20.25 an hour. And our staff recommendations is to approve the creation of a corporal position with that individual serving as the SRO at that pay rate.
Any questions to Don, please? Comments? Okay. I'll entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion?
Question.
Question is called. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed likewise. Passes. Discuss and consider possible action approving plans for the Salado Lions Club Roar 5K Run Walk on Saturday, November the 2nd, 2019. Don?
Yes, sir. Mayor, members of the board, this is a routine item, kind of housekeeping item. They're going to be in the right of way for this fun run and walk, and as such, they need our authorization. We approved it last year. There were no issues. It's a very simple event that works its way through Mill Creek, and we'll have patrol officers on the streets that day. Just got to keep an eye out on things. We recommend approval.
Questions, please, to Don.
Don, any issue with Main Street project and this event? Is it gonna?
Shouldn't impact it.
Comments or questions, please? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion's been made to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been seconded. Discussion?
Question.
Question has been called. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed likewise. Passes. Discuss and consider possible action regarding contract amendment number 10 with McLean Construction regarding improvements to the wastewater collection system. Don?
Mayor, we put an updated amendment before you at the dais as we've added one particular line item to that amendment. This is basically a contract amendment that will allow for 3 improvements to be made from the original project. And in part, they were design issues and final construction issues. The 3 issues that we're looking about addressing, first issue, number 1, is on the Means property on Main Street. And that is, as you know, those properties were given, they're on the low pressure line, and they were given tap locations. When the final layout pulled out on that in front of the Means property, the tap ended up farther north than it really probably was there's a better location for that tap. It's more practical for them to tap into. So we've put in there the relocation of that tap. We'll keep the tap we laid into them, but we're putting in an extra tap in front of their property at very nominal cost. The second issue is one we talked about, I think, for last meeting also, and that is on Pace Park Road, and I'm going to say the southern end of Pace Park Road. Down there, Chief BERRIER's, I guess his mom owns a building down there by Ulala in that area. The original intent of the design of that system was that those folks on that side, on the south side of Pace Park Road, would connect and come across the roadway to connect into that low pressure line. As we looked at it and looked at the practicality, it makes more sense just to extend that line over there and put those in front of those handful of buildings there right on Pace Park Road at the top of the hill. The question's been asked, does that mean we're going to take it down into Pace Park and down into that area? And the answer to that question is no. And the reason why we really can't do that is, from a cost standpoint, that's a whole different topography we're dealing with, and from an elevation standpoint, we'd be dealing with the lift station costs, and those are not cheap. This will get those businesses up top and afford them the ability to connect to the system, which they've expressed interest in connecting to. So it makes sense. The third aspect is one that we've been dealing with over the last couple of days. We have an agreement with Stagecoach. As you know, as part of that development agreement, is prior to that, and that was the agreement where we accepted the donation of the treatment plan. And there's a clause in that agreement that implies pretty clearly that the service line that runs behind Chupacabra, the museum, and those things that runs along Peddler's Alley, there's a service line that serves as a collector for all those businesses up down there, and then it ties into and goes down to the old Stagecoach line. It shows to be an easement. The agreement says that the service lines and easements afforded to those service lines. So our feeling is it only makes sense that we make the tap of that service line into the system. And so That's what this agreement calls for, rather than have all three of those businesses, because they're already tapped into a service line. You know, the unfortunate thing about that is that service line's old, and at some point, we'll probably end up having to deal with that service line sometime down the road. But that was just part of the original transfer. You know, and so we've included money in this particular change order for that. So when you look at the breakout in this situation, the total amount of this contract amendment is $14,930. And again, this takes care of the means connection, it takes care of the Pace Park extension, and takes care of the tap there at Peddler's Alley into the system. Bond proceeds will be used for this. Staff recommends approval.
Questions, please, to Don.
Don, the line down through Peddler's Alley will not be replaced. We're just going to tap into it.
All we're doing is doing the tap. It's about a it's about $2,500 cost.
Do we know how old that line is?
That line is old. It's big, which is surprising. Very surprising. It seemed to be when you count some of those lines in construction that were amazingly small, but it's a pretty good sized line, but it's old. And you know, as long as that's what's on it right now, it's functioning pretty good. You know, the problem is with those old brittle lines, and you know this from your business. The problem is it's not necessarily it's what's going over that line and what's driving over that line at this stage of the game. And as you know, there's an easement there where that line's located, and it's technically private property that Peddler's Alley area. And so, you know, when you have garbage trucks driving over that thing, and you have heavy equipment trucks driving over that thing, it creates depression that eventually can snap some of those old lines. So we're just going to have to monitor it closely. You know, we had that problem up by Barrows, about 8 or 9 months ago when we did the construction process. And that was all weight driven.
Is it a PVC line or is it clay?
Yeah, it's an older product. And it will be sleeved, just so you know, in the area of the water supply.
Is it historic?
No, it's not historic, but it is in the historic district.
Take
that. But we don't want to get into that discussion.
I got one. You got it?
Don's
Yes,
Pace
sir.
Park
I got one
extension, does that put those properties on the must connect list?
They were actually technically on the board. It's just, I would rather us cut, first of all, we got into rock over there. And I would rather us be the ones managing the rock cut than a frustrated contractor.
Other questions and comments?
I have
please?
one, and
Sure.
tell me if I'm completely off base here, Don, but you mentioned Pace Park Road and the public restrooms that are in Pace Park now. Would it be advantageous to connect to those?
No, John, that's where you're getting at. The
Yeah,
elevations
I
are
know the
such,
elevation, but are we gonna have a public restroom on Main Street somewhere? Or-
that's the plan. And
Well-
there have been discussions with folks at Stagecoach before the last encounter about the idea of, and there was willingness expressed on their part, and I think there may still be willingness at some point to allow for space on the Stagecoach property for a public restroom facility. Not where the old one was, but maybe at another location. Back to our discussions with Mr. Lighty at that time, he was open to that, open to us bringing a building onto the property, but his comment was he was going to maintain it and with his staff, which was great, because his comment was he would maintain it several times a day as opposed to once a day. That's one location. I think we need to be looking at locations up north. The school district, I don't think is going to be really open to leaving their restroom open on weekends from that standpoint, but the other thing to keep in mind, and that is as these businesses start connecting, you're going to find some of these restrooms are going to start opening up that are in the businesses right now. Some are going to be willing to allow that. Some are not going to be willing to allow that. The question has been posed, and that was, why doesn't the village get into a program where basically they grant some type of discount or exception or something along those lines to a property that's willing to open their business as a public restaurant? The problem is this: if we accept a business and if we get into that particular business, there's a whole host of compliance issues that start coming into play if we start saying that John's restroom is a public restroom, because if it's not ADA compliant, it has to become ADA compliant.
Well, it's only one holder anyway.
Yeah.
But would it be worth considering that approach to make that a public restroom at Pace Park? I mean, versus us being tied to an agreement with
The
another
lift station's
business
gonna
or a
run you in the
hotel.
ballpark of probably about $308,000. That's a swag. but
You can build new ones for half that.
you can build, that's exactly right. You could build two. You could bring two. I can guarantee you could bring two holders in with the restroom kits and make them look nice. You could go out and buy, for that volume, you could go out and buy 5 restroom trailers that have air conditioning, marble tops, and you could disguise the facades and tie them into the sewer system. So it's probably, I'm with you 100%. I want at some point to be able to have sewer down there, but I think it's gonna take something greater from a cost standpoint.
Well, if there's an alternative, like you just mentioned, that's a
Yeah.
smart play. It's just a thought I had.
Am I wrong, or isn't there some state law that says that you have to have restrooms for your people? Like you have to, if they ask, you have to let them use your restroom?
I will tell you that we've been involved in those discussions before, and there's a school of thought that is the case. There is a school of thought that is the case.
Building all those public restrooms for here, it's supposed to allow your restroom use. Like,
And mind you, I'm not advocating restroom trailers, but I will tell you that I've seen restroom trailers, again, I'm not advocating, but I've seen restroom trailers converted with facade enhancements where you cannot tell they're a restroom trailer, and they're marble, they have music in them, they're air conditioned, and they're ADA accessible, and they're not that expensive.
Other questions, please? Comments to Don? If not, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve this motion. Discussion?
Question.
Question has been called. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, likewise. Well, this is all the business that we're going to take care of this morning, or this afternoon, this evening. So what we're going to do now is go into a workshop. So we're coming out of the main section and we're going into a workshop where you get to listen to us, because the workshop is really the aldermen talking to each other and deciding in this particular workshop goals that we might want to consider for this year. Now, we have new people on our board, and we've not had this opportunity to talk about goals. So we're going to take it right now, and I'm just going to turn it over to the alderman and let them talk about the goals that we think or they think should be done. And there are no dumb answers here. There is not, because all of us love this village and we only want the best for it. And we'll try to prioritize them. Now, will it stay in the priority? I don't know. We can't predict what the weather will bring us, or calamities or disasters or anything else, but we'll try very hard. So, lady, gentlemen, the floor is open for you to talk. What goals do you think we ought to undertake this year?
Well, I'd like to go first if I could.
Please.
These are kind of like no-cost goals. I think that I want to get these out. I would like to see an ordinance created
I'm sorry?
that restricts RVs within the city. They're starting to pop up a lot of places. I'm starting to see vehicles that are non-registered sitting in driveways that are starting to turn into eyesores. Trash in the ditches. There's one particular place in Mill Creek that the guy runs a wrecker service that has a different car on the hook every night sitting in the driveway. I think we can just do a general house cleaning of what's allowed in our city and maybe push forward that. That's one of my concerns.
On the RVs, when you say restrict, are you talking about parking?
Yeah, a lot of them are parked right up front, Don, and they're, and I know that they can be hidden by fences. A lot of them can't. And they're popping up everywhere. I've seen 6 or 7 around Mill Creek already. Boat trailers, another one that's starting to return. And I think Salado needs to keep its integrity, keep the neighborhoods attractive. And if those people want to bring those in, get a user's permit temporarily or get them out of Dodge.
Very well, I'm writing as you go.
I'd like to see our subdivision ordinance improved with better definitions of a concept for a subdivision. Right now I'm seeing just lines on a map that comes in and for approval. And I'd like to see a better, more quantity and quality of a concept plan, and I'd like to define that in our subdivision ordinance. And when I say the definition of it, I'd like to go into detail on, what's the concept of the developers' homes, or what are they going to look like? What's the flavor of it going to be? Where the parks are going to be a little bit more defined, and I think we can tighten that up because, a concept definition is pretty vague, and you can, I think, define it a little bit more so we have a better idea of what we're going to see.
Okay.
And then my second goal was to, of course, we need some road repairs, and to piggyback on that, tree trimming has gotten out of hand, where we can't actually use the whole road service. We have to go into the middle of the lane to avoid trees. And I have 4 of these, so bear with me. And then my third one.
Hold on just a moment. Okay.
The third one is expand our sewage system. If I've understood the flow of how our tax dollars are going to be recovered, that more is better. And I'd like to see the services expanded to hotels and grocery stores, anything else that could really help our revenue flow. And then me and Don have been talking on, this is my wild concept, but Pace Park is an ideal parking place for people to come visit. And if they wanted to, we could figure out a way to get them across the creek over to our little sliver of land that we still have left over there. Maybe a stepping stone kind of configuration. I know you have to have the 404 permit with the Corps and wildlife and salamander and all this, but it might be something some of the businesses might want to partner with over there. And then ADA kind of thoughts would be to use the existing bridge that has the pedestrian, so we can this could be a low impact cost wise, but high impact for visitors into that area. And that's my 4 goals that I was thinking about.
Very well. Okay.
I have 3 others. I thought we had to go one at a time. Can I throw more than 3 out there? I got another one that says, I'd like to see a program that limits children driving golf carts. That's going to be a dangerous situation around town, I believe. So if it's not a licensed driver, they need to have some kind of a permit from the police department that they're capable of driving a golf cart safely around the city without an adult or with a licensed driver. The second one would be sanctuary is apparently on the way. I'd like to see a cost study performed comparing the impact of sanctuary with its businesses that are coming in, how it's going to impact downtown Salado. Will that become the new shopping mecca and downtown be neglected, or will they blend together and become one?
So the cost study would be on the impact study would be on the impact of the sanctuary commercial element on the downtown.
Exactly. Would that be the new shining star like Domain down in Austin, and people forget about going downtown, or will it be a beneficial thing to benefit both parties, downtown and sanctuary?
What would a cost analysis do?
Well, I don't know, maybe some kind of a prediction. Are you bringing in these businesses? Are they duplicating the businesses downtown? Maybe a comparison study, not so much a cost analysis.
I was gonna say, if they're coming, because we can't prohibit any development in there. So you know
No,
what I mean?
just to get a heads up on what's coming.
Right.
Keep
Okay.
abreast of
I
what's
see.
coming.
Yes, you're right.
Okay, then last thing would be the airport development out there. Lately, the guy's been advertising that he's going to bring in homes at the airport, and you can live in your hangar. And whether that's ever going to come or not, can we jump on that and piggyback off that to benefit Salado? And that's it.
In what way would you want to piggyback on that? Is that interest?
Well, will we have, people with airplanes, obviously, are, they're going to live at the airport with airplanes. Can we utilize that for inbound traffic to Salado? Can we contract people to bring people into Salado from other airports? I mean, it's a wealth of opportunity, I think, for both parties, both him and Salado, if we can spend a little bit of time with him, if he ever does come to fruition. And maybe piggyback off that, bring in people from other cities, fly and visit Salado, the word will spread like wildfire. If you can fly into Salado and spend a day, what a great thing. I mean, it may be an opportunity that nobody's even looking at. And that's it.
Okay.
I have a couple. Most of mine have already been spoken for, but I'm just going to kind of second those. So the golf carts, there's been a lot of discussion on social media about that. So we just got to decide what we're going to do. If driver's license is the way to go, permitting, whatever, there's been a lot of talk back and forth. I mean, we have a golf cart, or we have an area down in Port Aransas area. And so we're really used to that. There's a permitting fee. You have to prove driver's license, insurance, all that stuff. So, I mean, it happens in other villages. So I don't think it'd be really hard to find another really good golf cart regulation. But
Is your main concern of that? I mean, or is your main concern with that relating to age of drivers, condition of carts?
both.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm double-edged sword because as a parent, I wouldn't let my kid drive it anyways. But there's a lot of irresponsible parents. So I think that this gives the police department a hard and fast. So whatever we tell them, this is something that they can enforce. And so if we say it's got to be a licensed driver, when they pull it over and that kid doesn't have their driver's license, that's where you get it. It's not, well, maybe you should go home, or, well, do your parents know you're out? Kind of, that's all touchy-feely stuff. Like, it gives them something to go by. So we need something for the police department to be able to enforce, whatever that is. Parks, I also agree. We talked about parking at Pace Park and moving in that fence, but I don't know when that's going to happen. But I think that parking down at Pace Park's an excellent idea. That's another big ticket item right now, is not having enough public parking space in the village. Another area that, and you and I had talked about this earlier, is potentially looking at that lay down yard across from, that's village property across from the shed, is just overflow parking. I know it's kind of a little bit of a walk, but during events you could run the trolleys. So it's just another area that you could probably improve really relatively cheap. Road repairs are a big deal. The last couple of rounds of road repairs that I noticed going on, we're kind of focused on areas that probably not a lot of people get use out of, like Trace Vistas. So maintaining more high traffic areas, I think. A couple of them that probably are more focused towards tourism. We need to focus on some package deals coming to the village, because you look on pretty much any other website for any other city, and they're offering packages like a stay and play kind of thing. And we're not really working with the bed and breakfasts and the golf course and the eateries around here to really create like those package getaways. And so if we could have a package getaway button where you could click it and buy on the website kind of thing, maybe that's something that would draw more groups in. And the final thing, and no, it is not in the funding for this year, but something we really need to start considering is the one-lane bridge. Just as, I like run across it sometimes whenever I'm looking down there, it is just destined to fail. And it may be 5 years and maybe 50, but we kind of need to have a plan in place, what we're going to do when that happens. And part of that is going to be maintaining the rock that's currently in the creek, because it got scooped out, was it 2 years ago, and it's already higher than it was before. So maybe have
Ongoing maintenance program.
either an ongoing maintenance problem, maybe scooping it out's not the way to go. Maybe we need to have the Corps come down and consult with some engineers to figure out, maybe a hydrologist, I don't know, to kind of figure out what a long-term solution would be, because all the way from Stagecoach down is completely silted in. We could scoop rock for the next 3 years and not get it all out, and then it'll just fill back in next time. So figuring out.
On the load upstream from here is even equally bad from what I understand.
Yeah, and my concern is this: when the creek fills, it's got less capacity, so it's going to expand out more. So that's what's going to cause our flooding. So right now, if we had another rain that was as bad as the ones that we saw, 2 years in a row, we would have a lot more loss of property and potentially loss of life. The creek does not have the capacity that it had back then. And so we just got to look at maybe even as far as looking at some of our ordinances, kind of taking a step back of how close you can build the creek, the rise, those kind of things. Because right now we're just doing the basic minimum that FEMA requires. And maybe improving that a little bit to give us a little wiggle room. So I don't know what that looks like, but that creek's a problem.
The issue of flooding is one that we're all fast, and we're all guilty of being fast and looking at it right here, like below. You have to address the issue of flooding regionally if you're going to try to manage it and control it. And we've had that discussion with Bobby at the county level, and I've talked to the Water Development Board about funding availability and those type of things to really truly look at a regional drainage study. Because you're getting hit in a couple of places in town that really are regional problems. The Stagecoach Circle problem, for example, is a regional problem. It's not born in Salado. It's coming underneath the interstate. Same situation with the creek and the development going on up the creek, and how we manage it, and how you look at the idea of setting up, some type of, be it flood control dams, those type of things that can actually be used to recharge aquifers and things like that at the same time. So you're totally on target on that. The bridge is something we're monitoring very closely. And I think your point is very valid in that situation. And hence the reason why FEMA is very quick in the post-disaster environment to come in and authorize at a bat of an eye the removal of gravel that's up against the public structure, because they understand the forces and the pressure that comes with future flood on those type of things. So I'll say this though about the single lane bridge, and that is, I've now had the opportunity, and I've introduced this opportunity to manage in two small communities that were centered around, had single lane bridges. And I think the big communities need single lane bridges too in their high traffic areas, because it does more to promote community. This sounds really weird. It does more to promote community. You see more waves, you see more smiles, and those type of things, taking the flood piece out of it. But I will tell you that it is an area of concern. It's something we need to watch and monitor. And not just that one lane bridge. I think we need to look at, Rodney and I were talking about some of the issues we've got that people get trapped in their subdivisions right now down on Mill Creek Drive going down. And you've got three or four areas. You got to go out in the back. You got to go back to the guy's pasture over there in y'all's neck of the woods. And those type of emergency exits are something we need to pay serious attention to and start really focusing on and getting those fortified such that they're usable in that 6 or 7 inch rainfall at 8 o'clock at night in the dark, where you're trying to find your way through and not driving off into a mud pit. So all takes money. The good news about it is there's mitigation money that's also available for those type of projects, and it's something we need to look at.
The only other thing, and I know we've talked about it, I just want to put it out in public forum, is the alert system, the tornado warning sirens. And so I know you're already looking at grants for that, but just kind of putting it out there so we're tracking that in this cycle as well. And that's all.
I'm gonna take two goals, and they're not necessarily things that have to be done this year or something, but first is one we talked about last meeting was concerning the payment of the sewer debt and the interest and sinking money rate that we have on the bond, that we take all excess revenue that comes out of the sewer system over and above the operation of the wastewater system and apply it against the debt to help lower the interest and sinking rate. The second one is later this year, we're all going to get our appraisal district evaluations, which have gone up again. And which means that the amount of money that the village will collect less the frozen tax rates will increase the amount of revenue that we bring in. And I would just like us to be considerate of when we're building our budget, and I know we want to build roads or we want to fix roads, and we have a lot of projects that we want to accomplish, but we be cognizant of the maintenance and operation number, and that tax rate be considered. And I would really like for us to look if, our evaluations went up by, 10, I'm just going to use the 10% number as a round number, that we may consider that we're not going to take the full 10% right into our budget and apply it to our M&O number and work off that we might consider maybe backing out some of that and giving some of that money back to our taxpayers.
I've got a few things I want to carry forward from what we've been doing in the past. I think we need to finish up the work we were doing with the comprehensive plan. First of all, get that published. And the next part of that is deal with the overlay districts that we talked about in that plan, the west side overlay, whether that looks like the historic district overlay. But that's another we need to get into place before we get hit with developers that want to do the west side and we have nothing in place to do that. So I think that's a pretty, something that needs to be, it's high on my priority list. The other thing is I think we need to keep working on before the legislature takes it away from us, the annexation of our major feeders, 2268, 2484, and I-35, as far as we can get on those, so we don't get behind that curve as well.
Just know, Rodney and I talked briefly about it before the meeting. Know that what you're saying is very true before the legislature gets a hold of it. If the mayor in Austin doesn't back off from the governor, there's a pile-on process, and you know this, that goes on up there in Austin. And we felt the impact of it, probably the most severe cities have felt in years in this last legislative session because of this conflict between the city of Austin and the state of Texas. And I will tell you, we fired up again last night over the homeless issue. And it is, and we're still another, year from another session, 2 years from another session. So we need to get done what we need to get done that we can do within the current parameters we have that we feel we need to do, because slowly but surely we're losing a lot of that ability. And I'm not saying go pass a bunch of ordinances. I'm not saying go tax a bunch of people and do things. Some might misinterpret that statement. What I'm saying is there are some things and some abilities we have as a city to manage our growth that we need to take advantage of before we lose those opportunities.
Some of the things that I think about a lot is when we had construction, people got used to only opening Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Somehow or another, we've got to come up with an understanding that we cannot depend on sales tax to raise revenue for the future of our village. And we need to work closer with our chamber and with our tourism to get the point across. Salado is a great town to come and visit. So is Georgetown. So is Fredericksburg. So is Waco. So is Lorena. Do you get the drift of what I'm saying? Salado is not now the only place that people like to visit and to shop. And somehow we've got to get that message across. Number two, we need an EDC, Economic Development Committee. And we need to start entertaining, courting, talking to what Frank has said, an overlay that's already out there, a comprehensive plan that's already out there. Now then, we need to decide who and what businesses we would like to have here. And also the EDC to just talk plainly, well, what does Salado need to do to really keep who we are and what we are about? Main Street. We've talked about it. We've talked the pros and cons about Main Street. Should we take it over from the state? Should we not take it over from the state? And the reasons are, I must tell you that for nearly 4 years, I was very opposed to taking over Main Street. I'm not anymore. I think Main Street is very important to our businesses, to our way of life. And I think we should start negotiations with TxDOT about the possibility of taking over Main Street. I think there should be a permit for large trucks that cross our small roads. I think a developer ought to have to get permits for those large 18-wheelers, for those concrete trucks. We're not opposed to houses being built, but this is a health issue. This is a safety issue that we should be addressing. I think we ought to have a committee of grants, a grant committee. It'll be a while before we're going to get beyond a $1.6 million budget. I'm going to tell you right now, $1.6 million is chicken feed when you pay your police department, you pay your administration, you fix roads, you fix air conditioning. $1.6 million, not going to do it. I can't raise taxes. I don't even think I could get taxes raised. So we're going to have to go after grants, free money that we don't have to pay back. And I think that there is a bunch of those things out there. Before this project is over with, and I'm talking about the sidewalk project, we're going to have to start educating our people about the way people are going to be parking. It's different. You're not going to be doing head-in parking everywhere. You're going to back-in parking. And I thought about that. I got beat up a little, but you know what? You ever tried to back out of the Sophies? Well, you take your life in your hands when you try to back out, particularly if you got two large trucks there. So one of the things is just to back in, and TxDOT has been looking at that for a long, long time. I love the idea of the little bridge, that one-lane bridge. I really like that little bridge, but the day is coming. I tried to get the state to help us with that. That's not a state bridge. The developer who developed Mill Creek's built that bridge. And Amber is exactly right about the rocks. Right now, water is about this deep. Not all over the creek, of course not, but right there where any child could fall in and all of a sudden be swept under that bridge because that water goes through 2 or 3 places. Our job is huge. And I want you to know we're going to be just fine because these guys that work here, you've heard their questions tonight. I've wondered what a new board is going to be like. Well, it's a great board. And we're going to work together as a team. We won't always get what we want, but we'll go forward. We're not going to make all of you happy. We're not going to make the whole town happy. That goes with the territory. But everything that every person has said here is very vital. And it's viable. And it's not impossible. So I will close, and then I'm going to let them talk some more because I'm going to ask them to give, from what they've heard, 7, we're not going to agree on this tonight, but 7 goals of what you have heard. But we all need time to process. We need time to go home and think about it. So Don, in the very near future, I'd like for us to just talk about the goals that we come up with. Well, I might as well just show a shock treatment to most people right now, and I'll get ready for it. I think we need a city hall that houses us, our police department, our constable department, that will put us all in one place. I don't know if we'll ever have the chance to get the Civic Center, but to me, that would be something that would be our town hall. We don't have one. And the property here to be sold, which will probably, because of where it is, will probably bring enough money to make a good payment on something like that. Now, people tell me all the time, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out and then just stand by. We cannot afford to get surrounded. Hello, Holland. Hello, Bartlett. Your taxes is going to go straight through the roof. We've got to find a way to get water, because before we can annex, we have to have the sewer. You have it. You've got to have the population of 5,000, and you've got to have your own water. And we can't do that. We can be happy, we can sit here, but the day is coming. We're going to be surrounded. They'll use your infrastructure. And you think it's bad about people using the sewer and neighborhoods not having the opportunity to do so? I agree with that. But think what it's going to be like if you get surrounded. I hear a lot of talk about sanctuary. Sanctuary is not going to be a bad deal. Those 302 acres are a part of the village. And I don't care what Facebook says. I don't care what Nextdoor says. I don't care what Salado people say about sanctuary. Had we not done and worked hard in that, nobody took money under the table. That is absolutely ludicrous to even say that. No one took a new car for it. Everybody that worked on that did it because they loved this town. And the vision was big and broad, just like the West Side is. And this committee, the alderman and myself, I'm going to lay very straight about this. We don't do it for ego. We don't do it for anything but one thing. We love this town. And we love Salado. And we want the best for it. Even if none of my goals were done, that's okay. You've got great people that love it, and guess what? We don't get paid for doing this. So, I've said about all I'm going to say. People think that we get money under the table, or people think that we get cars, or people think that we do something dishonest. I'll guarantee you, and I'll take a lot, there's not a man here that has done that, nor those who were decide not to run. Okay, gentlemen, I've ended my speech right now. So you guys tell me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what are the top goals that we need to do?
Mayor, would it be helpful if what we did is we basically took the list that you've given tonight, craft it where it's understandable, circulate it in advance of the next meeting? I think we need to wait until Mike and Rodney get back so we have a full board here. And then at that point, let them trim the number down to 7.
I love it.
So they have a chance to read it and chew it. And a lot of this is done on the fly tonight. There's been good stuff on the fly, but it gives you a chance to absorb it, kind of think out your priorities.
What do the rest of you think about that?
It's a good idea.
I was
I think it's a great idea.
Chance to think through everything.
Yes. Yes, because we're at a critical stage in Salado, and we've got to make the right choices for the town that we love and for the people that we appreciate. Mike, what do you think? John, what do you think?
I think we are at a critical stage. We need to make the best decisions first and foremost, first time around. We can't afford to make mistakes.
You're right.
We can't.
Ms. Amber? You've been a part of the old board, now you're a part of this board. What do you think?
It's gonna be a good year.
It's going to be a great year, you're right. Mr. Frame?
Being the old monkey here and watching all this happen, I think this is it's a great list to start with. I was going to ask Don, is there anything we're missing that none of us thought about that we need to put on this list from your perspective?
You know, I appreciate that. It's comprehensive. It really is comprehensive. I mean, I think that Rodney has issued a challenge. And I think it's a good challenge that we need to operate with, quite frankly, every year with that challenge in mind. And that is, what can we do to get back? As opposed to take. And I think that's good. You know, I think the discussion we had the other night about the debt restructuring was a good discussion. I think we kicked out a lot of just, nobody was afraid to kick out their thoughts on the situation. And I think it was good. Streets are a big issue in this town. And I'm telling you that the thing we've got to keep in mind is we're not far, I would say from a management perspective, we're not far from the need for a bond package to try to start addressing streets. And I hate to use those words, but I will tell you, you can chip seal all day long, but you've got a lot of roads in this town that are in need of reconstruction and not just a chip seal. And those are difficult decisions to make, especially when we're trying to trim the debt side of the equation. But it's important to keep that in mind and keep that in the forefront. I think I heard streets mentioned from 3 or 4 of you tonight. And we cannot hide from that issue. And I think we're wrongly not keeping that issue in the forefront with people, so they understand those things don't come cheap and they don't get any cheaper. Drainage is a huge issue in this town that we have done nothing about, at least in recent history. And I will tell you that I'm not indicting the past, but I will tell you that when you talk streets, you talk drainage. But I will tell you that we have some significant drainage issues where we're the funnel. We're the funnel, and it's something that we need to get serious on. Drainage is more expensive than streets. It involves private property and more private property than streets. So those are things we need to start thinking about. I mean, we've got some subdivisions in this area that probably, maybe the drainage could have been done a little bit better than the original adoption of them. But again, no criticism of the past, but that's just the way it is. And we see that, and then we learn from those lessons. So, you know, I think you touched on there's staff growth issues that we need to think about. And I'm not a tax and spend guy. I am not a tax and spend guy. And I would hope somebody who's a coward behind a computer is not going to say that, because I'm not. What I am going to say is this, and that is, you have a very small staff. And for a city of this size, sitting on the interstate, and with the growth that's coming down the pike, with the police need situation out there, with planning and development that's coming out there, we need to be sensitive to that and recognize that at some point your operation is going to need to grow a little bit. You're sitting on a prime piece of property on the interstate right now, Mayor, and I think you're not wrong at all in trying to vision forward to try to get off of this piece of property and get somewhere where we can consolidate services. We in this business have a tendency to fraction our vision and we get territorial and we build our own corner of the world. And quite frankly, government, that's not efficient government. Government's working together and, and trying to consolidate services and trying to look at unified purchasing, trying to look at, how we can share staff, how we can share facilities and those kind of things. To think outside the box a little bit on those lines. You have a very innovative school district. And we need to be proud of that and we need to work with that school district. You have a very innovative commissioners court right now that has some fresh ideas and some new blood. I think it's an exciting time. But I think at the end of the day, Rodney is so true in the fact that we do that from a budget standpoint internally. You've got to challenge ourselves to try to not take and try to give as much as we can possibly give. But I think you touched on a lot. I think we need to enhance our communications piece with you.
Yes.
And I think it's not just through phone services, it's face to face. I think it's trying to hit every possible medium. I'm not a Twitter expert. I'm not a Facebook guy. John Newman has taught me more about Facebook in the last 2 hours than I ever knew about Facebook. But I will tell you, we need to try to touch on every medium and work on a communications plan and get the word out to people. What's happening with the streaming right now has done, in my mind, a lot for this community. And Amber's the one who first brought that idea up, which is a great idea. But I think we need to go further into that situation. I think we need more town hall meetings in the neighborhood. Go to the people. Don't make them come to us. I think that's really, really important. Backyard gatherings are sometimes the most productive. And having 15 of those over the course of a year as opposed to 1 or 2 town halls, I guarantee you is going to be far more effective just from experience in this business. But I'll step off my soapbox, but those are my thoughts.
Don, let me ask you one thing, because you did talk about communication. Talk to us about quorums,
About what?
walking quorums, talking quorums. Talk to us about that.
Walking quorums are critical that you avoid and you be sensitive. In this business, we're here to do the public's business, and it's meant to be done in public. And it's real easy sometimes in this business, and I'm not saying just in Salado, Texas, and in all cities. It's an issue in every city in the state. It's an issue in every county in the state with both school boards, cities, commissioners, courts. We all want to talk to each other. We don't like to come in and limit our discussion to what happens the night of the meeting. But at the end of the day, the law is there to try to protect side discussions and side deals and behind the scenes deals, from taking place. I mean, it is important that all of us realize that we don't get into situations accidentally where we've created a walking forum. For example, Frank talking to Rodney, just in a casual conversation about how you feel about something. There's nothing wrong with that discussion taking place. But you don't know that Rodney or Frank isn't going to go talk to Amber or John or you. And it's really important that you try to limit your group discussions, and quite frankly, as much of your individual discussion, to the public environment where the people can hear it and the people can understand it. And that's hard to do. In a small town especially, it's hard to do. But it's one of those situations that sometimes the most innocent of communications can sometimes lead to some of the biggest problems. And you don't want to be on the back end of a walking quorum allegation. It's not good. And in this day and age, I will tell you, they like to make examples of open meetings violations. I can take you to some folks who've been arrested for violating the Open Meetings Act. It's a serious, serious issue that we all need to, it's hard. Because I don't know, I think sure, there in some cases, there's pure intent in that. But I think in a lot of cases, it's sometimes the most innocent communications. I go back to I think it was the Texas Water Commission at the time. It's gone through so many iterations up in Austin and Maine. But one of the biggest ones that blew up down there was one where there was a guy who had a case, if I'm not mistaken, he had some type of issue before the board, and he was at a water conference. He was at a water, and he'd gone into the restroom and was taking care of his business. And 2 commissioners, at that time there were 3 commissioners, 2 commissioners walked in to go to the restroom too. He was in a stall, they weren't, and he overheard the discussion between the 2 commissioners about, can you believe that guy talking about this and this, this, this? They started talking about commission business. This guy knew it, picked it up, and made a big issue out of it. Again, the most innocent communications. You know, it happens at a coffee shop. You know, it's just, we're lucky in this sense. And that is, we don't have, McCain's is a great coffee morning gathering spot. When we were in Wimberley, I'll give you an example of Wimberley. One of the council members owned the cafe downtown to eat at. The mayor had a business across the street, so we ate breakfast over there every morning. And you go in there in the mornings, and someone would scream, quorum. It would be one of them because they saw them, because it was the only place to eat in the morning, and they would go by there to talk, and they had to monitor themselves because you just can't do it. Perception in this ball game is critical. Sometimes more critical than you know, the actual issue. So, just my only advice is please be careful. That applies. You can have a walking quorum in writing, as well as a walking quorum orally, which means watch your emails too. Is that what you were wanting?
That's exactly, and I agree with that. It is extremely hard. When I sometimes go to Strawberry Patch or wherever I am, and if there are 3 aldermen or 2 aldermen and myself in there, I've got a real problem. I either have to excuse myself or not talk about village business.
Yeah, nothing prohibits you guys from being in the same location. It's just when you start talking about city business, you've got issues, and you just gotta guard yourself against doing that, and that's hard. It's real hard, especially when someone goes up to Rodney when he's sitting there trying to enjoy breakfast, starts talking about city issues, and then Mike walks up or John walks up and sits down and says, "Hey, what's going on?" People start going, "What are they talking about?" You know, and it goes from there. And it spreads like wildfire, trust me.
Oh, yeah. And it's usually got a twist to it. Rodney, speak to us, my friend.
Oh, I like Don's idea, of just putting the list together and letting us vet through it. I mean, I think that gives us fresh perspective. I haven't had time to
I like
take
that.
in everything. So.
It makes us a real team, doesn't it? Puts everybody on the same sheet of paper. Okay,
But to avoid the walking or riding quorum that Don was saying, when you issue your 7 goals out to everybody, we don't hit respond all, correct? We go respond back to you.
Do not, yeah, absolutely. I can communicate to you, but keep in mind, it should be a one-on-one communication with us. You can't poll. You shouldn't talk about city business. I mean, it's keep your discussion. The best advice is keep it to the table in public where everybody can see it. It's just, and that's hard, but I know. I've done this for 21 years. I've seen it, but I've also seen situations where it didn't happen, the way it should have happened, and it got really ugly, and it got really bad. You don't want to be questioned by the Texas Rangers about violating the Open Meetings Act.
You're going to add communication, drainage, and staffing to the list. Thank you.
that's really good. That is really, really good. And the only way that I can communicate with y'all on any piece of business is I have to send it to Don, and Don sends it out under his name. That's the way I can communicate. Well, folks, anything else you want to say about this workshop?
I just would like a reminder on what's coming up in the next, what's our schedule for the next few weeks in July? I've sort of lost track of that.
What I'd like to start doing, it would be helpful for y'all, is I'd like to start putting the calendar out at the beginning of each month that you can just mark your dates, because we're pretty busy. And it'll indicate meetings you're not involved in, as well as meetings that our city commissions and boards are involved in, so you're aware of what's going on.
That would be great.
Does that answer?
Sort of.
Okay. Anything else that you want to do in this workshop?
No, Mayor, I think before you adjourn, there's probably value in thanking publicly Mr. Helms for what's going to happen tomorrow night in his fireworks display.
Oh,
It's
yes.
going to be a great display.
If you haven't seen it, you're going to.
Saturday night.
Saturday, excuse me.
Yeah, Saturday.
That's right, we do the 6 nights before.
It is very good, very, very good. And John, we've said this many times to you. what you're doing there, you're streaming this, and it's extremely important that people hear and see what's happening up here. And I can't thank you enough for that. All right. The workshop is now closed. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Let's go home. Nice job, guys.
Don't forget to do July lunch tomorrow. What's the July lunch tomorrow at school?
4th of July lunch.
What was decided election tomorrow?